Hello, I'm Malcolm Harslett. Recent evidence suggests William Shakespeare didn't write all those plays and sonnets he's famous for. True or false? We'll find out more next time on Our Time. Hello and welcome to Our Time. Who would have thought that Shakespeare maybe didn't write what Shakespeare wrote? Well, we'll find out more because we have the author of a new play called The Man Who Wrote Shakespeare with us, DavidCronin. Welcome, David. We've chatted with you before, so this is not new. And we discussed a long time ago that you had written this play.
I started writing then, yes, when we met a year or two ago.
Yes. And I thought, the man's gone crazy, I thought. But when I did a bit of research, I discovered he's probably on the money. It's also great to welcome back to our program RussellStarkey.
Nice to see you, Malcolm.
Russell, the good news is in this play, you actually play the man who wrote Shakespeare.
Well, you're absolutely right, and it's a delicious script.
Do you think you were born to play this role?
I know you think that, and when I read the script, I think you could be correct.
It's really interesting because I could sort of see you being this person, but we're not allowed to say who it is.
No.
Because it's like the Agatha Christie...
Yes, nothing to do with... Miss Marple is not in this show, believe me.
Mousetrap. Like Mousetrap. We can't say who he was.
No, but Miss Marple's not in it either. We've got a beautiful young woman in it, but Miss Marple ain't in it.
And the segue to the beautiful young woman is sitting right here. It's EmilyJoDavidson.
Hello.
And Emily, what's interesting about this piece for you, I believe, is that you studied something about this in the UK when you're...
I studied it here in Australia, at university, yes. So we had a whole topic about Shakespeare, and I wanted to know a bit more about his personal life, so I did a bit of research and found a lot more about this. So when this was presented to me, I got really excited and thought, oh, I've got to join in.
That's always good. And the last person to meet in the cast is CharlieHerkes, who is playing... Herkes, sorry, Charles. Who is playing a series of roles, as in fact you are. But you're playing...
The Rosalie.
And he was imprisoned with... the man who wrote Shakespeare at the same time?
Yeah, so they were together.
What for?
What was he in prison for?
Yes.
For... What was he in prison for?
Well, we'll talk to David. He wrote it. Why was he in prison, David?
They were both caught up in a plot. Well, the Earl of Essex was trying to take over England and take the Queen out. And they were caught up in that.
And why were they trying to take the Queen out? Did she have BO?
No, she'd been there too long, basically.
Well, she probably did, actually, because they didn't wash a great deal.
She'd been there a long time, and this young upstart, he was put out because they'd fallen out. He'd fallen out. He'd been unsuccessful trying to suppress the Irish rebellion, came back, and he was out of favour. So he lost a lot of money, his income, basically. So he was feeling emotionally bad about all of that, and he decided to try and take over the crown.
So how did the man who wrote Shakespeare, how did he actually get involved in this plot?
So yes, they got involved very on the sideline, really. Rosalie was more involved because he was with Essex in Ireland. And
that's
fighting.
you, Charles.
Yes. So they were a lot closer then. The man who wrote Shakespeare was really, actually that one of his plays, too, that was the way how he really got involved, because one of Shakespeare's plays was on the night before this rebellion was used to incite the people of London. And so it was put on, they paid all these players to put it on in all these theatres around London simultaneously, and it was about a king being deposed, Richard II.
So a lot of the plays really were paralleling what was happening in history at the time.
Very much, yes.
Did you know anything about this character, Russell, before?
Yes, I did. I love the works, we'll say the works of Shakespeare, because that's whom everybody previously has accepted and acknowledged. But for a long time, I've been very much in favour of what David has chosen to write about. I can't see how the man Shakespeare could ever have written the works. He was from a poor background. He was a very smart con man, I've always thought, a bit of a charlatan in the theatre, which, as we both know, Malcolm, is a good grounding place for a lot of charlatans.
I know what you mean.
Well, we both do. We've met a lot of them before, kid.
That's true.
But in those days, Shakespeare could not have had the education or the travel knowledge. You see, the man whom I play, and I won't say his name, just out of
Just the man.
the man.
The man.
Came from a very wealthy family, very well-known family, very highly placed in court circles, in the aristocracy.
Didn't the family make cannon for the Queen or something?
Well, yes. He was a great trader in armament, should we say, but he was also an ambassador to France at one stage of the game.
Unpaid as well.
Ambassador to France, yes. So he spoke various languages, but he was well-travelled. He'd travelled all around Europe, like they subsequently did for centuries, the rich. But you see, the problem for this man, intelligent, clever, poetic, romantic, and ready to have a go at anything, really, his problem was that it was very poor taste to be a writer or a poet. That was for those people, not the us people.
Yes, isn't that incredible?
And that created a problem for him when he became, as David has said, that this play that he had written under the name of Shakespeare was used as a plot, if you like, or something to urge the public on, which is what it did. And so even though he wasn't really part of that, because it was his play, he was put into the Tower along with Rosalie.
Yes, in the Tower of London. Now, he wasn't in the White Tower of London.
No. He was never in the White Tower.
He would have been overlooking the River Thames, I assume, in all those apartments that are along that part.
Which are horrible to stay in. I mean, they're cold, they're grubby, they're unpleasant.
See, it would have been cold because you'd be right on the river.
Right
It probably was quite noisy when you think about it.
Would have been noisy, smelly, everything.
Smelly, 'cause
dank
everything went in the river.
Rat infested, probably. All
Exactly.
of that, of course.
And the tucker wouldn't be too good either.
No. So, Charles, as you're in a way new to acting, you're
Yes.
not new to the entertainment industry
No.
because you've spent a whole
originally, no.
lifetime.
Training for ballet. Well, training in ballet and then doing a few things in ballet. And also
From when did you
contemporary.
start?
7 years old. Yeah. So.
And
I kind of started before that, but I didn't start training until 7, I guess. I
Right.
was always dancing and always doing things around the backyard and just sort of, doing stuff. And then Mum sort of like, well, why don't we put him to classes? So I sort of started then, and I guess the rest is history.
You got a scholarship then to go to Victoria.
So I started off at a local school, and then I went to VCAS from the local school for
And
my high
VCAS
school.
stands for?
Victorian College of Arts Secondary School.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like the secondary school version of the VCA. Yeah.
So your day was what?
So it would change. So I start off, I'll just go, I guess, a normal day, whatever that was when I was at high school. We'd start at 7:30. We'd start with dance until about 1:30-ish. When we'll have lunch, and then we'd go into academics until about 4 o'clock, and then we'd have more rehearsals till about 5:30 or 7:30.
So the discipline would have been immense.
Yeah, I guess I like to sort of not compare it to a military camp, but it was very similar in that sense because you had to be there on time. You had to be there, or even half an hour or an hour earlier to warm up, and then you're in class. And if you moved your arm the slightest little way, they'd not hit you, but almost hit you. A few of the teachers actually almost did, but yeah.
So doing a play like this is so different, and yet
Yes, it is. Yeah.
are you able to use that discipline?
Yes, definitely so, yeah. Especially in the direction that we get given when we're in rehearsals. It's very similar to, I guess, ballet, contemporary, or any sort of dance, or even sort of, I guess, maybe probably art actually. Because you're both working towards a certain goal, and the director wants to see a certain thing, and you want to be able to do that certain thing, and so you're constantly, I guess, working with whoever's telling you what to do. And you both sort of come to that goal eventually.
Which becomes the show.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And you sort of have this final product that you can, I guess, sort of look back on if they do eventually film it, or but the end product is what you're striving for, I guess.
Well, for the people there on the day or night.
Yeah,
to see
exactly.
the
To see
performance.
this, polished, I guess, masterpiece. Yeah.
Emily, what's your background?
My background is solely musical theatre. I haven't done as many straight plays, so I've been doing musical theatre
But
since...
this isn't really a straight play, though, is it?
No,
Because
it's not.
It's really a
Certainly
musical.
not for me.
No.
Absolutely not for me.
No, I believe you do a
considering
lot.
I play about 5 characters, and
Including the Queen.
including, yes, Her
That
Majesty
naughty old
herself.
Queen. Yeah.
That's right, which I very much enjoy. Thanks to David. And also thank you to David for giving me so many songs. So a lot of singing for me, which is great because, I have been doing musical theatre since I was 5 and just progressed since
And I
then.
do hear the slightest accent, and I know it's not from Tasmania.
No, I'm actually Russian. Yeah. No, I spoke...
Well, just hold that thought if you're rushing so much. We're rushing to a commercial break, and we'll be back in a tick. We're talking with the cast and the writer of a play called The Man Who Wrote Shakespeare. And it wasn't him, we think. And we were talking about your heritage.
We were talking about my heritage.
Yes.
That's
But you're
right.
not really Russian.
I'm not really Russian, no. I know.
Not when she's one of the leftover children
I
of the
played it so
Tsarina.
well.
Not, well, it could be. No, but where are you from?
So I'm from Leicestershire in the UK, which is the East Midlands sort of area. But I also do have Irish, Scottish background. So I'm a mixture. I'm a lovely United Kingdom cocktail.
Well, that's good if you're playing all those different characters.
I know. Got a lot of experience. What can I say?
Right, David, this play, this lasts for about an hour, but you actually wrote a bigger piece that you've condensed for this festival that's coming up.
Yes, that's right, Malcolm. Yes, it turned out longer because obviously he's a fascinating man of a rich mind, this amazing intellect, and very kind, humble man also, though. He kept the secret so well. They didn't find out until about 20 years ago.
But how did they find out? Where did this information actually come from?
Yeah, a lady who's a theatre researcher, a lady called Brenda James in Britain, was digging away, and she realised there's a code in the beginning of the sonnets. There's an introduction, and it's laid out in such a funny way. It has to have some sort of meaning. It's not just normal English. It's all with dots and
Right,
funny.
and also sort of short lines.
Yes, and not grammatical. So people have been wondering why, and they realised it's got a code in it. And now over a dozen different independent people have cracked that code. So there's kind of a Shakespeare code going on. And the reason is that the man who wrote Shakespeare was also a diplomat, politician, but diplomats had to know all these secret codes because they wrote letters from countries all around Europe. And they had
Because he was the emissary to France.
Yes, he was ambassador to France.
Ambassador.
But also travelled around. But it was also a prominent. He was like the leader of the opposition in Parliament. So, but he also took on a role. In those days, it was called the Undertaker. He undertook to balance both sides of Parliament. So he was often piggy in the middle between all these different factions. And in those days, it was dangerous business.
So he would have known the intricacies that he's written about in the plays. That's
very much politics.
Will we be able to parallel them more?
Yeah, law. Well, he was also then a prominent businessman, as Russell mentioned, but being a landed gentry and very rich family, he had this huge mansion in the country. His father also, as you mentioned, a cannon business also. But when his father died, he took over the family mansion in Berkshire, and that was only a few miles from Windsor. So they also had lodgings there in the castle where the king, the queen would come from London. So they lived there part of the time too. They were just a stone's throw.
They would have very much known each other, obviously.
They were very familiar with the royalty.
Yes.
And they
wasn't the man who wrote Shakespeare the godchild?
was a godson of the Queen as well, yes.
Of the Queen.
Because his father was the forester, the royal forester.
Okay, so...
And in charge of the entertainment for the Queen and all that, theatre, making theatre for the Queen.
So they weren't common folk.
No.
so
they
to
went
speak.
way back, yes. They were right up there with royalty.
So Russell,
This
the
is why it's so
suggestion...
I'm sorry, Malcolm, but this is why it's so fascinating to me, because David has done amazing research and has written very well. it's a beautiful script to play with, because he throws in, even if you're not familiar with the Shakespearean threads, it's an interesting play. But for people who do read and do understand Shakespeare and have a feeling for the sonnets and know the sorts of males or females that those sonnets may have been written for.
Well, that was my question. The suggestion is that the sonnets weren't
Oh, yes.
for a woman, they were for a man.
Oh, not all, no.
Not
some
all
of them, but some of them very clearly are written from a man to a man, quite clearly.
And this is the connection with one of the characters that Charlie's playing.
That's correct. Yeah. He's a younger man. The man who wrote Shakespeare is an older man, much more knowledgeable, well-travelled, sophisticated, where Charles is a bit of a eager young buck ready to go into anything and so on. But he's looking for sympathy and some sort of comfort in this terrible tower where they're both under threat of death. That's where David's been so clever to set us in the tower.
Yes.
Because we hear Essex have his head lopped off.
Yes.
At the beginning of the show. But then, when are we going to be done in?
Yes. Is that, Charlie, for you, being a young person, can you bring your own thoughts to a character like this about, you know, if you knew your head was on the chopping block, so to speak, in the future?
No, definitely, yeah. It's sort of be a very strange thing, I think. It'd be a lot of emotion, a lot of sort of feelings coming through when you're sort of there and you see someone's head be chopped off right in front of you. Well, not right in front of you, but like sort of you're looking down at it.
Well, so getting this right, this would have been done in the forecourt out the front of the White Tower, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and saw it. And it was all private. There was no public or anything. And I think it'd be that's more eerie than having it in public, because it's not the sort of the, you know, all the loud sounds and all the cheering and everything. It's just.
Yes, when the curtain comes down, it really is blackout.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and just seeing that, I guess, the character would have felt it'd probably be horrific. And being stuck in this mouldy, wet, rat-infested place and seeing that and then going, ooh, like,
it's
horrible.
It's frightening. But now, for you, playing more than one character, but you've got to play a man slightly older than yourself.
Yes, the chief advisor of the Queen, and also
What's
a playwright,
his name?
Robert Cecil.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that the beginning of the English Secret Service? Isn't that when that actually sort of began?
Exactly. So he's the man who actually started the Secret Service. So
the master spy.
yes, he's the one with the.
Was his father, I think, wasn't
Pulling all
it?
the
father
strings.
actually
The father, and then the son
started.
took over
Yes.
the father's
That's
role.
right.
And you're playing him.
Yeah, and he had all these fingers and all these pies. Back
Who
then.
else are you playing?
A playwright, Ben Johnson. Yeah, who's another, I guess, actor in the. It's a bit of a smaller part. He sort of pops in and pops out. But yeah, another playwright, will be good. They're quite contrasting characters, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, talking to the Queen.
Yes.
Yes. Could we talk about one of your lesser subjects, the Fool?
Absolutely. I mean, to me personally, she's not lesser, she's greater. She's just...
Because she gets to sing most of the songs.
She gets to sing most of the songs, yes. I relate her so much to a previous role that I'd played, and I'm just very excited that I can sort of bring back those characteristics that I've been able to work with in the past.
You did something like that in Pippin, though,
I
didn't
did.
you?
I played the leading player in
Well,
Pippin
it's
a
very
few years
similar
ago.
role, I
It
guess.
is. It's very sinister, cynical. She likes
stylised,
playing mind games, and she's not really there, which I love. I love
Oh, yes. So
prancing about.
So the preposition of this is the man who wrote Shakespeare. There are real people in the story, and there are his imaginings in the story.
Yes,
the
she
characters.
is an imaginary figure in my mind whom I never see.
Not
never
that you've
look
got
at.
a big head or anything.
No, I don't, but I just as well I do have. It's like an old coconut, it'll stretch to suit.
But she
That's if
also
you can
has
stretch a
the
coconut.
narrator role too, so she is there in that sense as a conduit to the audience and directly singing.
Well, it's a lifetime to tell in an hour.
Well,
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so we just take a chunk and make that as any good section or any good story. You can imagine the rest hopefully.
And Rob's written a fantastic script. It's an easy script to learn, but it's very complex because you have to have your mind on it all the time. There are lots of little hooks. You know, you were talking earlier about secrets and the spies. There are lots of verbal hooks within the script. It's like a book that you'd love to read again and again because you pick up something all the time. So in the rehearsal period, it's beginning to be very interesting because for me, watching two marvellous young people playing, it's really exciting to see the differences in the characters and how they are weaving other things into his really terrific script.
Yes. Did you, as you wrote this, could you see it happening, or was it more a literary experience for you?
Oh, you do visualise it, Malcolm. You certainly are always looking to make it come to life. But yeah, the sources have to be. What I tried to do, for example, half the songs are actually using Shakespeare's words.
Right.
So I've kept it as authentic as possible. Initially, I wanted to
Not
use
plagiarism,
as much as
though,
possible.
of course.
After 400 years.
It doesn't
You think
come
the
into it.
copyright's gone?
It doesn't
In those
matter.
days, they didn't. They were literally had spies in the audience sometimes taking it down
Taking it
so they
down.
could
Oh,
take it
wow.
off to
Yes.
the regional theatre.
But when we say Shakespeare didn't write Shakespeare, the assumption is that he actually copied what.
Well, when you're saying, yeah, I think Shakespeare was the collaborator.
Yes.
He was a successful
Exactly.
theatre person. They had their own company, so I don't see him as a fool. He was a,
He was a businessman.
producing the plays.
He was
so
a businessman.
He was a necessary partner to the man who wrote Shakespeare.
Because
change bits and
yes,
pieces.
this character couldn't publicly be known to have written these things.
Right.
So there has to be a combination where Shakespeare agrees to put his name to it.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting, because the way we say Shakespeare isn't actually accurate, is it?
No,
How should we say it?
Shakespeare.
Right. Well, there, see, you learn something every day. And we'll be back in a tick to learn a little more. Well, we're discovering more about the man who wrote Shakespeare in this new play written by David Cronin. One last thing, David, what's this meant to you?
Oh, it's fantastic to have this ability, the opportunity to introduce this man who is fascinating, as I mentioned, so rich.
Are there any
character.
plays around that actually identify this man, apart from yours?
Not a play, no. That's why I thought to do in this form. I thought they'd already have a documentary, but not yet. No, there will be films, obviously, but it just takes time for these things. There's such a huge, monolith about Shakespeare, the man, the legend, and everything. So yeah, it'll take time.
What's it meant to you, Charles, for
It's
doing this?
opened my eyes to things that I would never actually go out of my way and research or even probably see, because it's all Shakespeare, Shakespeare, Shakespeare. And you get to actually see what's underneath all the Shakespeare writings with what this play is about. And it's really, opened my eyes to, I guess, the history and what's really behind the words.
Did
in
you do
Shakespeare.
anything like Romeo and Juliet as a
I've
ballet
never, no,
dancer?
no, I actually never did any of those.
So you didn't know that sort of physical story either?
No, so yeah, I've
Right.
actually over the years I've done my own research of Shakespeare, but this is really, I guess, another level. Like, it's a lot deeper, I guess, with information. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Which is
most
great.
people at school would
Good.
sort of, oh God, not that again, sort of thing.
No, absolutely. I wasn't like that at all. I've been studying Shakespeare since I was very, very little. I've had so many books of his. I've got a collection. So this was such a major opportunity for me. So that's why I'm advertising it as much as I can, because it's just such a wonderful production that David's put together, and I'm so fortunate to be a part of it. I've always wanted to be a part of something to do with Shakespeare, and
Well, it's certainly a different take. What's
The
happening
last
this Wednesday?
2 weekends of October.
This is here in Adelaide.
This is here in Adelaide at the Star Theatres on Sir Donald Bradman Drive. So if you're flying in from Victoria, you'll come from the airport straight up Bradman Drive to the city, and you'll pass Star Theatres.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, Star Theatres used to be Theatre 62, which began in 1962, where I first played when I came to live in Adelaide.
Part of a festival, a whole.
It is. It's the back-to-back
weekends.
short season. I think it's called the
Short show.
short show.
Short
Yes,
show festival.
and they're short, sharp, and
And
shiny.
this is a short show, is it?
It is.
5 minutes and
Yes.
they're out.
Well, no, not that short. But there are a whole lot of shows which will play. You can go to an early afternoon, a later afternoon, an evening, a late supper
okay.
show. So it runs from the Thursday through to the Sunday for the last 2 long weekends
And the
of
bookings are
October.
online, I guess, at
Certainly are, Malcolm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
At Star
Star
Theatres.
Theatres.
Well, that's all we have time for. Thank you for your company, and I hope you've learnt something, because I certainly have. So keep yourself nice until next time we meet. See ya.